been taking my time. I feel like I'm out of my mind. It feel like my life ain't mine. I've been on the low, I've been taking my time. I feel like I'm out of my mind. It feel like my life ain't mine.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Project Mayday. These are your hosts G and Bree, and today we have Chief Mark Romer. And I can sit here and go 15-20 minutes on his accolades. We will absolutely let him talk about all that, but just an overview: 40 plus years in the fire service, 34 of those being in the field and promoting up within the ranks. I mean, that handlebar absolutely speaks for itself. Chief, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah. And with the transition of, we'll talk all about in the 1970s when you started to becoming a firefighter, becoming, captain, engineer, climbing through the ranks, becoming into education, teaching curriculum like you're teaching now. Let's start off with the roots. Where do we grow up? Where do we get the interest of being, a fireman? Talk about that.
Well, let me help you out first. It's firefighter, not fireman.
Okay.
Right? Right. Back in the day, it was firemen. Yeah, I get that. But I grew up down in Marin, and when it was funny because when I went through high school, and by the way, just a little tidbit, my high school is where Robin Williams graduated from. Down
Oh, wow.
Just a little piece of history there. But I did my career in the high school in an architectural program. It was one of the programs that they offered all the way through, and fully expected to become an architect. And I had some friends that were volunteer firefighters at the time in the Corps Madera Fire Department. And one of them says, "Hey, we're looking for volunteers. Why don't you come on down and join up?" And so I turned 18 in September of '76, and went down, joined up, and as they say, the rest was history. But it was kind of interesting because at that time, obviously large organizations had fire academies, but this one didn't. And they right on the back of the engine, it was 40 hours of training. That was. And at that point, they said, "Hey, you're blessed. Start." And our turnout coat. I wish I still had it. My turnout coat was canvas duck. It had a corduroy collar, right, with that kind of stuff, and the inside was flannel. And we wore, a pair of wool pants and our black duty boots. Wow. And that's how we went. So, the helmet was, the turtle shell at the time, but had ear flaps, no hood. And our SCBAs were, the pressure demand type. So, if you want to talk about seeing things change over the years, yeah, I've seen a lot of that over the years.
Yeah, so what's interesting about you is, you started in the 1970s. However, now you're still in the field as far as education goes, and I'm sure you have boots on the ground when you go out to departments. But you're changing, and you're able to adapt and evolve, and you're able to talk about the mental health aspect, and you're able to get familiar with something that's unfamiliar to you from the 1970s. So talk about that a little bit. Why are you so adaptable where other people aren't?
Well, it's a kind of an interesting question because throughout my career, obviously, I've seen a tremendous amount of change, and with that, you have to adapt to it. If you don't adapt, if you don't start realizing things are progressing, you fall way behind. When you fall way behind, that's where you get yourself in trouble. And that's the whole thing with mental health. I've seen things go through my career. I've seen people have issues throughout their career, and I've been able to realize that, we've got to start doing something for ourselves out there. And one of the things that was implemented in the most recent rewrite of our Firefighter One program is a whole section on introduction to mental health, as well as cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Can't tell you how many friends I've lost now to cancer. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of people go down because of mental health issues also.
Yeah.
And so being able to see that, being able to recognize that and be able to adapt and be able to, for me now, present that information. And to be able to present it from a real life position of seeing those type of things occur over my career, I've been able to do that.
Yeah, Romer, let's kind of talk about your personal experiences, because you are a living example of being able to have a very long, successful career in fire service. So when you were 18 years old, starting out in the fire service, what were some things, were there some calls that may have been difficult for you?
Yeah, there was, in fact, it was the first structure fire that I ever went on. And you remember I talked about in that one interview. And, when they put me through that 40 hours of training, no one ever told us what it's like to go to a call. And I can remember that call to this day, and the key points about that call. Remembering riding on the back of the engine going down the freeway. There was 4 of us on the back. It was an open cab engine. I know who my company officer was. It was Kent. All right. And the people that were riding alongside of me, Rick and Patty, and just knowing who all those people were and making the corner, because we could see the column of smoke, and we were a mutual aid, and we were going to be the second due company arriving. And the right-hand turn, the next right-hand turn, house on the left-hand side, it was a yellow with white trim. I mean, just the finite details of that, and being told, hey, we need you to pull a line around to the back, leave the back, and getting back there and seeing, okay, here's the kitchen, it's on fire, go put it out. And then remembering Chief Archer walking up to us and saying, hey, don't go in that way, there's a body right there. And looking down, and at 18 years old, I've never seen a deceased body before, and certainly one that hadn't been burned to almost unrecognizable, just a lump of burnt flesh sitting there, and seeing that and realizing, wow, oh, okay, that sudden, whoa. And then from there, every time I stayed at the firehouse for months, having the same reoccurring dream. Mm-hmm. The body getting up and moving towards me, right, saying, help me. And knowing that there was nothing I could do. It was gone. And that would wake me up instantly. And for the rest of the night, I wouldn't sleep. I mean, I'd sit there and stare at the phone, all right, because the phone upstairs would light up when the 7-digit 911 call would come in. I'd be on point. Okay, is that going to be another call? Is it going to be that one that I'm at another one again? And it took months for that to finally diminish and finally go away. But I was afraid to talk to anybody about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You did. At that point in time, you were seen as weak. And it was just like, okay, we'll get through this. And they finally diminished. They finally were able to go away because at the time I was what they call a resident or a sleeper. And so, I'd stay there maybe 1 or 2 nights a week at the max. And then I was gone out doing other things and able to get, good sleep at night at home away from that. That's one of those keys where you can mentally process things in your subconscious. And that's what allows you to do, especially that real deep sleep.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I never said a word to anybody. I did not want to seem weak.
Yeah. And, thank you for sharing that as a story, Chief. And how long do you think it was before you started feeling okay after that call?
Oh, gosh. It took probably 6 months.
Wow.
Before those dreams weren't occurring any longer.
So, with that being said, 6 months, some people take longer than that. Some people are, shorter than that. And then I know just based on, our knowledge of you and talking of you outside of, this podcast, you have worked in very busy systems. So talk about what it's like to not be able to vent and to talk about that crazy major call and then going right into another one and then going right into another one for 36 years. Like, what's that like?
Yeah. And the good part about it was that once I started teaching, and like at fire tech classes, those type of things, I was actually able to start talking about those things. But that was, I left Marin in 89, and I started teaching at AR about a year and a half later. And it was at that point that, I started being able to talk about that with the students and kind of sharing that information, because I knew that no one shared that information with me. No one said, hey, you're going to have bad calls out there. Mm-hmm. No one is going to be ugly. Even I remember I was like one of the first EMTs in EMT class. They teach you CPR. Well, I'm sure Ray, you probably go into it now. Hey, by the way, when you start thumping on somebody's chest, it's going to be ugly. Mm-hmm. I remember the CPR case. I remember sitting in the back of the ambulance after because I heard the doc say something. God, this guy's got broken ribs everywhere. And I went out, again, here I am, an 18, 19-year-old kid thinking, what, I just killed this guy? Not knowing. And it was kind of nice because the guy that was the attendant with me in the back, so I rode with them to the hospital doing CPR. He came out afterwards and he goes, hey, Mark, great job. I'm like, yeah, but that's not what the doc said. He goes, nah, you did a good job, man. That's just one of the things that just happens out there. Mm. And that opportunity of being able to, start communicating those type of things to people out there, that's one of the things that really helps you, right? Being able to talk about your experiences and letting other people know. And that's what I think really helped me, especially later on, being able to communicate that. And today I freely discuss everything with all my students.
It's very interesting that you said that you only felt safe to speak to students, not your own coworkers. Can you kind of go into why that was true?
They don't judge you. That's the key, right? They do not judge you. And they absorb that information where, the feeling was that if you came out across with those type of things out there and talking about those things with your own personnel, the people that you're with and working on it, again, they're going to look at you going, what are you, a wimp? Come on, buck up, soldier. And so it was easier to communicate to those out there that you're not working with. I think that really helps out.
Something else too, you were a division chief, and when you go into more of an administrative role, how does that change who you can talk to if something was bothering you from the field?
When you move up into management roles, one of the things I found was that, the bosses that I worked for at that point, I was really good friends with to begin with. And it was a little bit easier to talk with them than it would be to, go talk with the guys that were on the line. Mainly because, they had, possibly the same type of experiences that I have had over the years. So you just felt a little bit more relaxed that it wasn't going to be, judged. You weren't going to be judged by them.
So something that I've noticed so far is something that you keep bringing up is judgment. That you think that your coworkers will judge you either as weak. We have this thing where it's weakest chain, right? If you're the weakest link in the chain can break, right? And it's that mentality that has really put us where we are today with first responders not reaching out, not looking for resources, and really internalizing a lot of these struggles even with people that we see more than our own family, right? This is our secondary family. We eat, sleep, we do everything with, we depend on each other. And then yet when it comes to the most intimate areas of our life, our mental health and how we feel and think, we don't discuss that.
Yeah, we don't. And it's unfortunate. And I hope that as we start to instruct our younger population coming in, and that's one of the things I really enforce when I'm teaching, because I do the whole segment in the academy on PTSD and that whole process. And that's one of the things I really stress with them is look at, you need to talk with people out there. And if you're having problems, and I say, if you don't feel comfortable with, the crew that you're working with, reach out to somebody else that understands. And I go through the whole litany of people that you can do, whether it's accessing through your EAP programs, employee assistance programs. If you're even clergy, if you need to, maybe the fire chaplain, because most of the fire chaplains have been out there, they've been on the job before, they know what those things are, and they can help you work through that process. I had a young student about 3 or 4 semesters ago that was probably suffering some effects of PTSD from the military. And, I saw him starting to dive a little bit in the academy and some things getting to him. And it was interesting because when I was talking with him, I was doing my eval and I started hammering him pretty hard about, his grades falling off. And he broke down immediately. Okay, we're going to end that part. Now let's talk about what's going on in your life. And me being able to, I've already talked about this stuff in the past, he was able to kind of start to open up on that. And I said, hey, we can get you help. And he was actually afraid of going to get professional help, from like a psychiatrist or something like that, because he didn't want that stigma to go along with him. And I said, well, I've got a good friend that's, a chaplain. How about we get you in touch with that person? Because that's going to be totally confidential. No one's going to know about that. And he was very open to that. And I got him in contact, and it was amazing to see once he was able to talk with that person, grades started shooting up, and he's now full-time employed in the fire service. And I, having those kind of resources to fall back on really helps out. You don't feel that comfort level to talk with those that you have around you because they might be judgmental in that way they act.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then, so, take it back a little bit when you were in the field. You said you were a little bit more reserved in the field as far as mental health goes, but when you became a captain, which, you run your own station, so to speak, did you provide that? Do you, just, retrospect here and kind of reflecting on yourself and your career, when you were a captain, do you think you provided that space for your firefighters to come to you?
Nope.
And why do you think that is?
Again, that fear of even myself being judgmental against somebody. Because here I am. I've grown up in the fire service. Hey, don't be wimp. All right, step up to the plate. And I didn't want to jump in on somebody and be judged or think I'm being judgmental of them about this. And again, back then there was no PTSD. There was, but you know what I'm saying? There was. And so, not recognizing what those type of needs were, didn't do it. We just didn't talk about those things. Yeah. I look back, and again, everything's compounded, right? So yeah, I might have these calls and all this stuff that I go to, but what's happening in your personal life also, right? And those things have an impact. I had he was a captain that worked for me on one of my rewrites for the state. And real nice guy, worked in the neighboring department that I used to work in down in Marin. And I heard through a number of people, that he was having some issues with the department, but at the same time, he was having some serious personal issues. His wife was leaving him. There's some financial issues and stuff like that. And the next thing I heard, he killed himself. I mean, they had to send the sheriff down to do a welfare check, and they found him dead.
Wow.
Again, and that was, 2000. I mean, so we're not talking that long ago. We're 2021 right now. This was 2000, and we still weren't talking about PTSD.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, they were happening.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And, I love that you're calling yourself out to the carpet and being able to say, no, like I didn't provide that space for my firefighters. And, that's what it's all about. It's about growth and knowing that, you operated with what you knew at the time. And now you know a lot more and you're able to adapt. And so, if you had that same firefighter at your station when you were a captain, like put yourself back in that space, now that you know what you know, how would you have responded or how would you have shown up differently at your station?
Well, personally, I would have talked about my issues and those things that I had gone through. Because if I'm willing to talk about something and open up about something, other people are going to be willing to open up and talk about those things also. And say, look, we're not going to judge you for what's going on in your life, what's going on right now. We just need to get you help. And to me, that's the key. The faster we can get help to you, the faster you're going to get past whatever is going on in your life. Like I said, a good example. Found that kid, basically crashing and was able to get him help very, very quickly. It made that space for him so that he could start to heal himself.
And
those are I would do now.
And that's what is so powerful in your position is because you have transition that we've kind of talked about from this good old boy system, where it really is, quote, old school, but you can take care of yourself. You're fine. You have to be strong to do this job, which is still true to this day. You still have to do self-care. You still have to be incredibly strong to see the things first responders see. But now it's more prevention before we get to that point. And that's exactly what you said was once you get way behind, it's really hard to make up versus doing something like you're sharing your story with your academy, the new generation coming in. Do you see how open I am? Things will happen to you. It is a guarantee if you stay in this profession.
Absolutely. Another good example, 4th of July. I'm working down in Marin, and we get dispatched to a bicyclist versus car on a roadway that I've ridden my bike down when I was a young kid. I mean, the object was to go all the way down the roadway without brakes on. And as we pull up to the scene, here's this patient on the ground, face down. There's a PD officer standing over him. I can see it's bad. I roll him over, and the guy's the same age as I am at that point. He's in his early 30s. I'm in my early 30s. I'm looking at this person. I can obviously see that he's not going to make it. And the girlfriend walks up and is over the top of me. And she goes, "Is he going to be fine?" And I'm like, we're doing everything we can. I get back because I had very little help. I had a volunteer firefighter that was helping me. Wasn't really that big of a help. The medics finally showed up and they started taking care of them. And I was able to, pass off that patient care. Got back from that call. I remember getting out of the engine and just walking to the side of the firehouse. There was a curb there, sitting down there and just staring out into the park. And I had to mentally kind of sit there and kind of process. And the fire chief was walking by. And he looked down at me and he goes, "You all right?" And I go, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." I wasn't. It was a stressful situation. I was looking down at myself. That could easily have been me. And I'm looking down at that. And I just leave me alone. go away. I'll process this.
Mm.
And I was able to get through it very quickly. No real nightmares or anything like that about it. But it was just that at that point it was PTS. It wasn't the D, right? It was just PTS because there was that stress of that trauma and seeing yourself potentially right there, and then just kind of sitting there having to process through that.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to relay those type of things to people, I think, is probably the most important thing we can do as instructors, as full time. If you're in a position of supervision in an organization, being able to relay that so that they can see that you're human too.
Mm. And you're in a position that's got a lot of power and a lot of voice because you've touched so many firefighters that have gone through your academies and classes, and including myself. I was in your class in 2011 when I first started my fire career. And so what message do you have to say to your past students and also now your future students? What kind of message would you like to say now to them when they're going to be watching this?
The key thing is that don't be afraid to talk about it.
Mm.
I mean, you've got to be willing to be open in regards to your feelings and what you're feeling out there and what's going on at that point in time. Because if you don't, it will eat you up.
Mm.
And it'll just keep adding on itself.
Yeah.
Lucky that, at that young age, at 18, that I had that incident, but I didn't have any other real major ones until, a year or two later. And then, okay, I have another fatality and I have another this, and they weren't compounded right on top of each other, but we're starting to see that where, our personnel are having these, major incidents, one after the other. My wife noted it today. She said, God, another group of people just died in a traffic accident, another one. And, we see that over and over and over again. And when you have multiples that stack up on themselves and you're not able to process through that, I mean, that's what's going to get us. Mm-hmm. And so just that openness to be able to willing to talk is probably the key.
Yeah, and this is just out of curiosity. You write a lot of curriculum for the state fire marshal, and so have you sort of started implementing some of the mental health aspect into the state, or are you just keeping it within your fire academy that you're in charge of?
Well, like I said, the new Firefighter 1 program has a 4-hour module programmed into it now on PTSD and PTS, and just the whole element of assisting and helping people through that process. And then I find, when I'm teaching like the company officer series, in the, I think it's the 2A, 2A is the human resources one. I do a lot of talking in regards to that in there also, and making sure that our people are looking at their employees, paying attention, looking for the signs. We had an employee at Roseville that they ignored the signs, and alcohol consumed him, and he ended up losing his job, and then within 3 years, drank himself to death.
Mm.
That was the failure to recognize, right? Or did, but just ignored it.
Mm.
Trying to help that person through the process, they weren't helping them; they were hindering them.
Mm.
Fortunately, if we had gotten to him, maybe really early on, he could have finished his career out. But he got to a point where he just denied.
Mm-hmm.
That's a shame. We should never allow that to occur with our people. I talk about that at that company officer level, so that our company officers, when they're out there, they're thinking about this stuff. They're paying attention, looking for changes in people's behavior. You're there, a third of your life with these people, and early on, what they're like, and pay attention to that. It's about watching human behavior, as looking for those subtle changes start to occur. because that's usually something that's occurring in that person's life that's causing that.
Yeah.
You know, Mark, getting on a personal level, when you've been very stressed out, what was your go-to? What was your sign that you would give out? Detachment? Did you have any incidents where you would maybe have a drink? Were you angry? What was a time where you were struggling, and what did you act like? What was your sign?
Later on, it was the family, because I was able to come home and not necessarily talk about what's gone on or what's occurred, but just being with them, right? Being with my children and having that fun. That was the stress relief. Even though kids can be stressful, it's a different type. And just being there with them is one of those things that got you out of that mode of thinking about what was occurring back over here.
Mm.
And that really helped out. And then focusing on things. The organization I worked for down in Marin, it became so stressful down there because of a boss that I was able to focus on, okay, what's going to take for me to get out of here? What do I need to do to make myself the best to get out of this organization and get away from that stress that was occurring in that organization? And being able to focus on those type of things, on what you want to do, where you need to go, helped out also. Getting the so that I could move on to another organization. Those type of things helped focus me and relieve some of that stress, because I knew sooner or later I'll get out of here.
Yeah. Chief, we can go another hour talking to you with the amount of experience that you have. I know we've probably just touched the surface, but we do have to kind of wrap things up here. And how we wrap it up is a little bit of rapid fire. And I know you haven't seen a fire in a long time. So this
YouTube channel, come on.
and YouTube might be a little new for you. So it's called Rapid Fire. It's 5 questions, and you're going to answer them in one word or one phrase. And some of them are a little fun, some are a little bit more serious. So we'll see what you come up with. All right, Chief?
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay, first question. If you were the ruler of your own country, what would be the first law you would introduce?
Freedom.
All right.
Okay.
I thought I was going to stop him, but...
Okay, second question. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
Hell no.
Number 3. On a scale of 1 to 10, how funny would you say you are?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
However, I don't know if you cracked a joke in our class back in 2000. I don't know if you ever cracked a joke.
Okay.
I've been funny lately, let me tell you.
All right, fourth question. When was the last time you shaved off your handlebar mustache?
Well, that's a great question. And that was back in the 70s.
Oh, my goodness.
All right. Actually, let's see. When did I go? I went to work for the pepper mill. Right. And I was still a volunteer at the time. And the pepper mill had a no facial hair policy. So for 6 months, there was no mustache. I couldn't take it. I was so stressed out, I quit.
I really hope you have a photo of you without a mustache.
Hell no.
Okay, all right.
I've never seen me without a mustache. She threatens, all right, if I'm on my deathbed, she's going to shave it off just to see.
I mean, it's a power stash, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Whew. All right, last question. What is one word to describe the fire service?
Fantastic.
Ooh, I like that. That was awesome. Chief, absolutely. Fire service is fantastic. You're fantastic. I'm sure your students that are going to be hearing this, listening to it, wherever they may be, absolutely consider you fantastic. Thank you for those 40 plus years, Chief, and however many more you're going to give, which you don't need to give any more. You can absolutely retire whenever you like. So again, thank you for your service, Chief, and thank you for coming on. We really appreciate you coming on.
Anytime.
Absolutely. All right, guys, this is Project Mayday. Call out.